It's an otter box.
What's going on, guys? We're back at Yin Yang Zing. We're back with the full new format. This is Patrick, and this is my Mekk Invoked. It's an update from the last one. It's very, very different. We're going to go into the side deck for a change, which is going to be weird. We have Bird and John behind the camera today. So, we're going to jump right in to the main deck. 3 Alistair. Alistair is your big play. It searches your fusion spell and it just opens up the entire deck for you. If I can move my cards, that would be great. 3 Purple Nightfall. We're going into the Mekk Knight part. So Purple Nightfall banishes itself to search out another Mekk Knight card. You only run 3 Mekk Knight names. So Purple Nightfall is the big one, and its search effect is a quick effect, so you can banish it and then get it during your next standby phase. 3 Blue Sky. The more cards in the column, the better this guy is, because it'll let you search out more. So you can search out your Indigo and you can search out your Purple Nightfall and really help thin your deck. And then 1 Indigo Eclipse. Indigo Eclipse is good for helping you move things around so that you can manipulate the board and get more advantage. That's it for the Mekk Knights. We're going to jump next into the hand traps. This deck is so strong going second because it can run so many and it doesn't really matter. It's triple Ash Blossom. Ash. And then this is probably the best hand trap in this format overall, just because it's so many combo decks and so much adding. Triple Droll and Lockbird. It used to be 2, and I have found myself always siding it in. So I figured just main it. Every deck searches, and if I'm playing a deck that doesn't do a lot of searching or that it's not the better hand trap for, then I'm going to side something else. I'm going to side 1 out and go for something else. And then 2 Ghost Ogre and 2 Veiler. I kept finding myself not needing a 3rd Ghost Ogre or not needing a 3rd Veiler or what have you. Because the current format's super combo-centric and a lot of adding. So, in my opinion, I think this is the right ratio for hand traps for this deck. But certain decks are a little different.
How many hand traps do you say you run in that?
3, 6, 7, 8, 10.
10.
Yep. Just a quarter of the deck, because you want to see your hand traps to be able to stop things, because you blind second. You want to go second with this deck. It's super strong going second, because it can do so many interruptions during your opponent's turn without even doing anything. 3 Magical Meltdown, because you want to see Alistair as often as possible, and it protects your fusions for being hit with Solemns or anything. So they're going to have to hit this card. And it baits Ogre if you've already opened an Alistair. It'll bait Ogre out. Triple Terraforming. Terraforming searches off Magical Meltdown, which searches off Alistair. And then your Alistair search to Invocation. Using your opponent's graveyard as fodder for your stuff is a lot of fun. And it really helps eliminate some of certain matchups, like if they only have 1 Isolde or they have a Firewall Dragon engrave engrave. I think it's Firewall. There's a couple of targets that people are commonly playing that you're able to just get rid of. So, triple Mind Control. Mind Control, you run so many links. This is so strong because of that. You're able to steal their stuff and then just continue your link plays. So first you summon your Mekk Knight stuff, you get your searches off, and then, alright, I'm going to steal your stuff and I'm going to get rid of it. So, Mind Control is great for that. 2 Spellbook of Knowledge. Alistair doesn't mind being in the graveyard because Invocation banishes it from grave anyway and then recycles it. And it gives you more cards. So, 2 Pot of Desire. Desires, it's a +1. I mean, you run multiple copies of just about everything in this deck, so it's not that big a deal if you banish 1. And then, I was finding that this card is not very good going second, but if I'm stuck going first in some kind of matchup where they want to go second, this is a good kind of going first card, but you don't want to see it every game. Scapegoat at 2.
Do you ever side out Scapegoats for anything?
I actually have. I've gone down to 1 in a couple of matchups. Like, it just depends on what the matchup is. For example, against Altergeist, I typically will side out Scapegoat. It's not super strong because they're going to want to go first if I beat them, regardless of what I'm playing. And I know that because it's a trap-heavy deck, so I typically will side those out for other things to just disrupt them more and be more annoying. 2 Instant Fusion. Instant Fusion, there's 2 targets in it, and it's Raging and Thousand Eyes Restrict. I typically will go into Thousand Eyes Restrict because it's basically another mind control. And then 1 Raigeki. I've been contemplating to take this out for something else, but I don't know what. So I'm keeping it in the main deck for now. And going second, like if I can create a board strong enough, then I can nuke their board and OTK them. So occasionally it's helpful. It just kind of depends on the game, but for the most part, it's a good one of. It's the only one of in the deck. Next is the extra deck. In the extra deck, I run 2 Makaba. Pretty standard. Makaba's free negations, pitch a card. It's not super great against Altergeist, I found, because I don't run any traps in the main deck. But it can stop their monster effects, and it banishes them, and it does the same to spell cards. So it's still Makaba. It's still a super strong boss monster. 2 Purgatrio against the Pendulum matchup. This card almost single-handedly will win you the game just because they recur so many cards. There's so much advantage that they gain. And this card just, alright, you can have it. I'm gonna run it over. And it does piercing, so it's great. Purgatrio is fantastic. I actually used to run Elysium and only 1 Purgatrio, and I always wanted another Purgatrio. So I've taken Elysium out, and I've moved to double Purgatrio, and I'm way happier with that ratio. 1 Raging. It's a Book of Moon. It's a target for Instant Fusion. I don't go into it a lot, but every once in a while it does come up. But this is the big target for your Instant Fusion. So Thousand Eyes Restrict, you all know what it does. But the reason why it's good is, 1, it's a spellcaster, so you can use Book of Moon on, or Spellbook of Knowledge on it. You can also link it away for Link Karibo. Link Karibo is so good. It's protection. It has a quick effect. It's recurring. It's just a super powerful card. It's a great one of in the deck. And then after that, it's Link Spider, because you run Link Karibo. That's incredibly important. When stealing your opponent's monsters, I will typically go into this. Underclock Taker just lets me weaken their stuff and beat it up. And it just makes it a little easier. 1 Proxy. And then I'll just go into all my Link 2. So Proxy Dragon, Mrs. Radiant, and Akashic Magician. I've actually found the one I go into the least is Akashic Magician. I think I've gone into it once for its bouncing effect, and its bouncing effect is really strong, but I don't run any Kaijus, so I'm contemplating taking the Akashic Magician out.
Who do you see the most when it comes to the rank 2s?
For the Link 2s, it's typically Mrs. Radiant and Proxy Dragon are the 2 most common ones. Underclock Taker is like up there, but Akashic Magician is the Link card I go into the least.
Off Scapegoat?
Off of anything. But off of Scapegoat, I always go into Mrs. Radiant first to create a board. And then, my Link 3, only 1, Deco Talker. It's Deco Talker. And then my Link 4s, Saryuja and Borreload. Saryuja for the draw 4, but I also find myself constantly using the 3 effect, and that's an extra special summon, which will help me get more Mekk Knights on the board to create bigger boards and just continue recurring stuff. Borreload, because it's a pain in the neck to try and get around, and its effect is incredibly powerful. So that's it for the extra deck. I'm sure you can count. So, and we're going to go right into the side deck. I only run 2 monsters in my side deck, which is an extra Veiler and an extra Ghost Ogre. In certain matchups like Pendulum, I will side this in. And sometimes I'll even side that in. It just depends on the matchup, but these two cards are incredibly helpful in certain situations, but I find against the majority of the meta that these two are the two I side out the most frequently of my hand traps, and I want to have them just in case, but they're the two I side out. I was siding out the most, so it just made sense to relocate them. Next up is probably the card I side in the most when I know I'm going first, depending on my matchup, is Shared Ride. Okay, so this card is ridiculous, absolutely insane. Every time a card resolves and adds a card from either the deck or graveyard to the hand, I get to draw a card. So against things like Goki Nightmare, as an example, or even Sky Strikers, every time you do something that pulls a card from either your deck or your graveyard to your hand, I get a card. So you're going to recur some resources, but so am I. And it kind of puts a hindrance on, do I really want to play this game? It's like the Maxi challenge for combo decks. Next up is 3 Cosmic Cyclone. I was having a huge problem with Altergeist. And a lot of trap-based decks. I found Cosmic Cyclone was a card that I really like going into, and it's really good against the Pendulum matchup. So because it's multifaceted, it's just a really powerful card, and I really like having it as a 3-of in the side deck. The final 2 spells is 1 Scapegoat and 1 Instant Fusion. If I'm finding that I really want to have Mind Controls, I add in another Instant Fusion to steal their monsters if they're like huge combo decks. I want to make sure that I have ways to do that. Scapegoat to create bigger boards if I know I'm going first. I want to be able to defend myself and things like that. And next, specifically for Altergeist and any other trap-heavy deck, I went 3 Red Reboot and 2 Royal Decree. Against Altergeist, all 5 of these cards go in immediately. It just stops them from being able to play the game. Royal Decree is more powerful in my opinion in that aspect, because it'll stop 90% of their deck. So, but Red Reboot is also incredibly powerful, and it just gives me basically 5 cards in a 40-card deck, so it increases my odds of seeing it, and it really helps.
So what do you end up switching for those?
If I'm playing a trap-heavy deck, it's typically like Scapegoats will come out, and typically like Terraforming, Raigeki is probably going to come out. Because against those decks, their monsters aren't very big. So, for Altergeist, it's typically I'm taking out the cards that I don't need, that aren't making it easier for me to win. So I'm taking out like Raigeki, I'm taking out a Terraforming, I'm taking out Scapegoat, I'm taking out probably an Instant Fusion. Like, I want to make sure I increase my odds of seeing my 5 traps and just not letting them play their game. This deck is a very, which is odd for me, control-based deck. So it's just a second turn control, which is it's a lot of fun. I'm still having a lot of success with it. I'm still doing pretty well locally. So, but that is my deck profile for Invoked Mekk Knights. I hope you guys enjoyed it. I always do. And just let me know if you guys see anything, if you have any ideas, suggestions, comments. Leave them all down in the comment section below. And we'll see you guys next time. Like, comment, and subscribe. See ya.